Once upon a time lived a poor old man named Greg. Greg had always been a poor man with no expectation of becoming anything worth mentioning. One day while walking in the forest, he heard a crackling coming from a very well-lit cave. As Greg inched towards the cave, he felt a very strong presence. Greg continued into the cave. As he got closer to the crackling noise, the light began to get brighter, until he found what appeared to be an orb. Greg stared at the orb. The crackling continued until Greg said, "What are you?" The crackling stopped. 5 seconds went by and the orb began to speak. "I am the orb of Gina Gills." Greg responded, "Who is Gina Gills?" Gina Gills is the god of all that is magic. When she was summoned to the underworld, they relinquished her powers in the form of an orb and placed me in a cave. I have been here for over 300 million years. And since you found me, I am obligated to grant you 3 wishes of your choosing. Greg began to cry in happiness. He said, "Anything?" The orb responded, "Anything." Greg said, "Well, for my first wish, I wish I was a king." As Greg blinked, he was in a palace. And an old man passed by Greg and shouted, "Good morning, my lord." Greg looked around and realized the man was speaking to him. Greg said, "Who, me?" And the old man said, "Yes." Greg asked the old man to escort him to his room. As the old man escorted him to his room, the orb appeared. Greg looked at the orb and said, "Thank you." The orb responded, "2 wishes left, sir." It appears that only Greg could see this and could subconsciously speak with the orb. As time passed, Greg married his wife and birthed a son, in which he named Christopher. Christopher was Greg's pride and joy. Greg's life has never been so good leading up to this point, until one day there was a
War in the palace.
palace and it was destroyed. Greg commanded the orb to kill all the enemies. The orb said, "Yes, sir. Your wish is my command." And in one zap, the men fell to ash. The wind blew away the men. And the orbs, again, said, "One wish left, sir." Greg, after the war, began to change. He started being mean. He started being a mean king. He would have his men go to the strongest village and kill off all the men. And the women, then take their children so he could train them to be soldiers. Greg did this for 30 years. Greg had the strongest army of all time and was easily consumed by the power easily consumed by the power in which he held. Greg didn't stop there. He decided to use his last wish on making himself immortal. The orb granted his wishes and transformed him to a 20-year-old man. Greg did not know that he would have to deal with all this wrongdoing. One day, Greg rode his horse through the forest. He decided to visit a cave where he found the orb. When he entered the cave, an avalanche of rocks closed Greg in. Greg tried for years to push the rocks, but never could. He ended up being trapped there for eternity. The end.